So craftsmanship is often about being able to repair your mistakes. So if you remember, I was really obsessed with getting that driver's side looking really, really great. And I succeeded at that, but in the process, I overshrunk it. And basically what that did was drop the rear corner down too low. And that caused a whole bunch of fitting problems with the inner fender well and the rear panel. So I had some options. I slept on it and decided that the best option was going to be to remake the entire side panel. Now, I could either buy one or make one, and I decided I was going to make one. So in order to make the panel, I started off by making a form. And I did that by making a pattern using the passenger side, which is still intact and pretty straight at this point. I simply drew one out, cut it out of a piece of poster board, laid it on a piece of plywood, and cut myself a plywood form that I could use as a hammer form to form the side panel. So I got that done. That was my step 2. Bought a new piece of 18 gauge steel and got myself ready, 58 bucks, and I'm ready to go make one. And I thought to myself, I ought to at least try to fix this, and how might I do that? And in thinking about it, I had overshrunk a little section, probably about 6 inches round. And I figured if I cut that out and cut it out in a triangle shape, I probably could lift this rear corner and put it back into place. And what I needed to do was figure out some sort of a pattern. And then it dawned on me that when I had cut out the opening for the wheel, when I was making that side panel, that would be sort of the male to the female. And if I could fit that in there, that I could make that line up correctly, that I'd end up with more or less the correct shape again. So I decided that was my plan of action, and that's what I did. Once I had used that plywood form to get the corner back into place, I then had to make this patch panel. And since I already had a hammer form to make the whole side, I knew I only had to use a small section of it. So I cut a small piece of 18 gauge steel, bolted it down, and hammer formed that lip that goes on the inside of the fender. And then I fit that patch back into place. Once I got it all trimmed, take my time, got it very close fitting, I went ahead and MIG welded that back in place. And it takes about an hour to do something like that because you don't want to overheat the panel and get it warped. And there's lots of videos on the web about doing that. But I just took my time and welded it back into place and kept using my form, going back and forth, and then finally put the inner fender well back in place and was super happy with the results. Everything came out exactly like I wanted it to. So I want to show you quickly how I made a new corner for the driver's side. I started off by taking a square piece of 18 gauge steel. I clamped it down to my workbench and hammered a flange on it. That flange is what attaches to the rear panel. The second piece of it was I had to form this curve. And I looked around my shop, this is probably like an 8-inch circle or something, and I didn't have anything that was big enough to do that. So I looked around the shop and said, maybe I can do it incrementally. And I found a 2.5-inch piece of pipe, and I bent it over the pipe. And I just was very careful. I kept eyeballing it. It's not absolutely perfect, but it works out great. One little secret, if you're gonna do this, draw lines up and down. And so if you draw lines with a Sharpie or something like that on the panel, you'll be able to line it up more and make sure that you keep the curve in the same plane. This came out just fine though. So I marked it in place, I checked the panel, I've got all the parts of the Jeep back in place here, and I'm double checking and triple checking because once I weld this in place, I'm kind of stuck with what I have and I don't want to redo it again. So at this point, I'm happy, everything is level, the fender wells are where they should be, and I've marked, using my little stopestone here, where this panel meets. And so I've got to take this panel off, cut this out, and then tack it in place. All right, so we spent a little time fitting this panel in. It looks great now. All it needs to be done is it needs to be spot welded in. The key to this, again, lots of videos on the internet, is take your time, do little spot welds, and let the panel cool so you don't distort it. So Patrick Tipton again, thanks for tuning in. Please like and subscribe and comment. Keep those corners square, get out in your shop and get something done.